All right, we're back in the workshop here today with Casey, and we're going to go over some of the common tools that he uses to install cabinets.
Yep. Probably the most important is
Measuring tape.
Measuring
Number one
tape.
tool.
Yep, number one tool, because you have to center things on windows and make sure their cabinets are going to fit and you're squared up into different areas correctly. You have your correct space for a dishwasher or your stove. You're centered on your window for your sink typically. Sometimes you're going to have to put fillers in, so you want things centered so it looks nice. Otherwise, you're going to have a cabinet butted to a cabinet and then a 6-inch filler somewhere else. You'd rather have 2 3-inch or 3 2-inch fillers so it looks nicer. Another important tool that's commonly overlooked, broom and dustpan.
Broom and dustpan.
You really can't put your cabinets on a dirty floor because it will set things off.
I got you. So you really, I mean, you mean it when you say that. Like,
oh, yeah.
You want to sweep up, make
you
sure that
want
floor is clean.
You want a clean area to work on.
Gotcha.
Another thing, too, it's important, levels for obvious reasons.
Yep.
You put your cabinets in and they're crooked. Somebody puts something on the counters and they just roll off the counters, which is never good. Another important thing with the levels is when you're starting your layout, you measure everything out, you have a pretty good idea what cabinet goes where. You want to take your big level, the biggest one you got, you want to level your floor. See how you are here, see how you are here, see how you are here if you're coming around a corner.
So when you're doing that, though, like when you're moving it around, okay.
You're looking for your high point because that'll be the first cabinet you're going to set.
So
and then work off it.
Let's break that down. So how do you find the high point? By moving your level around?
Yep, you're going to put your level in. Usually I'll do, like this is your wall. I'll do the back loop and then come out, almost 2 feet. That'll tell you if you have a slope this way, if you just have a tile that's a little bit off or if the whole kitchen slopes to the back corner or whatever. Once you find your high point, then you know that's the cabinet you're going to start with because everything else is going to get shimmed underneath to bring it to that level.
Gotcha.
If you start over here and this is your low point, you're never going to be level.
Gotcha. Okay.
Another thing too is on your walls. I always take my level along my wall and I set it against the wall in a few spots to see if it rocks.
So you're checking the actual wall itself.
Yes, I check the wall itself.
Okay.
And I'll set it this way to see if it rocks because that'll tell me if I have a bow in the wall.
So what do you do if you have a bow in the wall? What would you do then?
Depends on how bad the bow is.
Okay.
And where the bow is. Sometimes you can kind of hide a bow between, the particular stud is here. You can kind of flex your cabinets will have a lip on them. And that lip is so that when they come together, they have a little bit of flex.
I gotcha.
So if you do have a bow, you can kind of work with it. Now, if the bow is too bad, I have literally cut the drywall, take a chunk out, and these 2 cabinets will be on drywall. This cabinet will actually set inside the drywall a little bit.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So definitely,
ceiling. If your cabinets are going to the ceiling or close to the ceiling for crown, I'll come across the ceiling as well, see where my high and low spot is, and work with that.
So do you walk into a space and you do all of this with your level and everything before? You find your bows, you find your high spot.
Yep.
You're going to check the ceiling. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. And then once you do that and mark everything, then you'll actually jump into the install.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then for the install, the cabinets are typically 34.5 inches tall, unless you have custom, in which case those are, I know when I worked at the custom cabinet shop, we made them 35 inches tall. That extra half inch gave us a spot where we could put a 3/4 board across the dishwasher, so we had something to actually screw the dishwasher to rather than have to rely on glue, because they just glue a piece across the granite.
Gotcha.
That's the standard. It's 34.5 with the glue strip. We built ours a little taller so we could put an actual strip painted, looked nice, and it had something you could actually screw to. The upper cabinets typically sit at 54 inches. That gives you 18 inches off of your countertop. That's your standard there. So I'll find my 54. I'll find my high spot. I'll mark my 54, and then I'll bring my level line in whichever direction I need to go for my uppers.
So that level is crucial.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What's next on your tool list?
Next on my tool list is once I have determined my level and everything, then I start hanging. In order to hang, we have a drill.
And I see you have multiple drills,
Yep.
multiple different bits laid out here. So
Yep.
what's the reason for that? And do you actually take all of them and kind of set up like this?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I do. And the
so
reason
it's not overkill. It's actual.
it is and it isn't. It's not overkill for me just because I own them.
Yeah.
These 2 came in a kit. These 2 came in a kit. I bought a different kit, so I had plenty of extra.
Gotcha.
The reason I prefer it this way is This is a T25 bit. Those are the screws I use to screw things into the wall. This is a Phillips bit. Your cabinet
So let
hardware.
me see on that T25. Let's see that bit head so they can understand. Hold on, let me see if I can. There we go. It's a
Torx bit.
yeah.
It's your standard screw head for doing construction.
Gotcha.
Then this is my Phillips bit. This is most of your cabinet hardware. Will be screwed in, the screws for the doors, the adjustments on the hinges will all be Phillips. So I have a Phillips bit at hand.
Okay.
This bit is just a normal drill bit. It's a 3/16, and I use that for connecting cabinets together. You pre-drill the holes, otherwise you're going to run the risk of splitting the face frame when you're trying to connect two cabinets
So
together.
that's your pilot holes.
So that's my pilot hole bit for my connecting cabinets together.
Okay.
This drill is currently set up with a, 2¼ inch hole saw bit, and this is for doing plumbing. So I can swap that out easy. It's a quick disconnect from Milwaukee. So different size plumbing, obviously different holes. And so I use that intermittent, or for based on whatever size plumbing I've got, or if I have a hole where I got to bring an electric cord through, for example, an island, they'll usually just have a cord coming up out of the floor. I'll drill it into the bottom of the box, and then the electricians will take it where they want. In which case, a lot of times I'll use paddle bits, and I'll use these for the actual water lines because they're smaller. There's no sense. You can see that one's been tore up pretty good, so I use paddle bits a lot for those. But they all do the same thing. They just create bigger holes than this does.
Okay. So
Now, if you have an
drills,
electric box inside your,
bits.
Yep.
All right.
then you're going to have times where you're going to have electric boxes in behind your cabinets, be it a dishwasher electric box down underneath your sink. If you have a tall pantry type cabinet and somebody wants a coffee pot inside there, microwaves, if you have an above the stove microwave, you'll have a plug above that cabinet. That's what this one's for. This is a oscillating tool. It's got a bit saw blade at the end. It does cut ins. Let me get a piece of scrap
Yeah,
here.
we can definitely do a piece.
This will just give you a nice, easy plunge cut to in the back of your cabinet for the whatever you've got going in the back. So just like that, you can cut it. Pretty easy. Get a nice square cut.
Yep.
So you can notch out for your plumbing and whatnot, or for your electric. Another thing, sometimes you get a narrow cabinet. For example, that cabinet on the wall up there. Can't get your drill in to get a screw to connect to the next cabinet. That's when you get that tool.
Wow. Let me
That
see.
is a right angle attachment. So now I can screw at a 90-degree angle.
So
That's not a
definitely-
mandatory tool, but it's definitely a useful tool.
That right there is a very, especially for tight spaces.
Yes.
Especially for tight spaces.
When you're doing your crown, typically I'll use a nail gun or an air gun to nail in my crown. This is a punch. This is a hammer. That's to make sure your nails get set properly. Just hit the head of the nail, and it drives it in. So that is
Got
also
you.
very
You don't
important.
want any nail pops or anything.
You don't want
like
your
that.
nail exposed, otherwise it will show, and it irritates the hell out of the painters when
Yeah.
they got to come back in and mess with things. Let's see, rubber mallet. Obviously, a rubber mallet is useful because sometimes you got to add a little additional effort to get a cabinet to do what you want it to do. You don't want to hit a cabinet with this. It will not only dent it and possibly damage the paint.
Yeah.
This thing is nice for not messing things up, but still, proving a point to the cabinet that it needs to go where you want it to go.
Right. Got it.
This here is your typical hidden hinge. It's a European style. This one, I believe, this one is soft close.
Now, how can you tell?
How can I tell it's soft close? Because
Yeah.
it's closing itself. It
So
didn't snap my fingers when I tried
Right.
to do that.
So when you flipped it, there it is. Okay.
These are adjustable. A lot of them will have three-way adjustments like this one does. So on your door, head on over here, your hinge controls the tip of the door, the balance of the door, so you can keep it from bouncing.
Yeah.
It'll be tight up here and it'll be way off out here. And when you've got a series of doors running next to each other, this particular style of hinge will actually allow you to raise and lower the whole door without loosening the hinge.
Got it.
So you can, this will control the,
So this
Tip this
screw,
way.
this middle screw that you're
that screw there
Yeah.
controls this angle of the door.
got it. And you can look. So can you look at this lip and kind of see?
All right, so let's adjust that. We'll adjust the other one in the opposite direction, and it should create a door that now
Yep,
has a little
you
bit
can
of an
definitely
angle on
see.
it.
Look at that. So from top to bottom, it's kicked out to the left.
Yep.
So you're saying now you can adjust
Now you can adjust that back,
righty-tighty.
line it back in where it's supposed to be.
And now you can line it up, down. Got it.
And then this one here, this adjusts, if you watch this space here,
Yep.
come on you, there we go. See how it kicks that out?
Yep.
That controls this angle. So if you got a door that's got a little bit of warp, or if your studs have a little bit of a bow in them,
Yeah.
you can, it'll affect how this door sits.
Now-
See how it bounces?
Yep. Now let me do that. You can see from the top to the bottom, that gap is a lot wider. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now you can adjust the gap with this, that in. Sometimes you got to bring the other one out a little bit to compensate, but it'll tighten everything back up.
Is there a perfect setting for that? Like, and also when you're adjusting that, this reveal here,
Yep.
you can tell if it's level by that reveal.
Exactly.
So essentially you want this reveal and this reveal to be in line, to look proper.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And sometimes, you know, the door itself could be a little askew, meaning it isn't a perfectly square door. So everything is about looks. You just make it look as close as you can, walk away from it.
Yep. Because you can get warped
You can
doors.
get warped
We've
doors.
had
You
that
can also
before,
get a
right?
situation where I've done plenty in like old beach houses.
Yeah.
The
That
walls
water.
are all askew. So when you screw your cabinet to the wall, it actually flexes the cabinet. So your door sits funny.
Ah, gotcha.
But you do what you can to bring everything in line as much as you can. And
But that's where you definitely want to do the hinge adjustment.
Exactly.
Okay. Got it.
Then after the hinges, after you get everything hung, you get your doors all done, then you got to put knobs and pulls on.
Okay. And
These
what do
are-
you got here?
These are
some
my
jigs?
handy dandy little jigs for doing knobs and pulls.
Okay. And what do you got two separate ones. So
This is for drawers. What I do is I put a center line on it, and then this will sit on the drawer face. And this one's set up for a 5 1/4 inch pull, centered up at, usually I'll have there'll be two sets of holes. There'll be one at like 3 1/4, depending on the upper drawer, and then another one at like 5 1/8 to 5 3/8, depending on the second drawer height. And they'll be lined up where they're centered off of the center line. Upper drawers get the top hole, bottom drawers get the lower hole. You set this on and you'll center it up. Open your drawer, find your center of the drawer, meet. Then you have, everything's the same.
now
Nice and easy.
do you do pilot holes on that too, or do you
Yeah.
just go straight in with screws?
No, I just do a pilot hole, and the reason is when I go in, I make my mark. If you go in all the way through it, you end up warping this hole.
I got you.
This hole ends up getting all out of whack, and then you're never exactly right.
Now are the doors and drawer faces, are they sensitive to splintering sometimes?
No.
Or no? Okay.
Yeah, not typically. Most manufactured companies, the box cabinets are typically an MDF drawer front. And the reason they use MDF is because it gets a smoother finish.
Gotcha.
It's easier to sand. The paint goes on nicer. So most of your box cabinets are an MDF.
Okay.
Unless you get like the stain cabinets, and then those will be whichever particular wood your cabinet is. If it's an oak or a maple or a poplar. And then for the doors, the template I use for that is reversible. I've got it grooved on both sides so that you just walk up to it, hit your two holes. And if it's the other side door, you go to that side.
So
this
it works both ways.
Works both.
But again, it's set up for a certain.
Yes,
that's,
this is
you know.
specific to this width and where you want where the handle lays.
Yeah.
And then what the gap is, the center of your pull is on this one.
So like a single pull, a single knob or anything.
A
you
single
can still
knob
use,
typically, yeah, single knob will typically go there.
Yeah.
So you'd have one hole about there.
Okay.
It'd be centered on this and this, so you'd have a hole there.
Got it. All right. Clamps. You don't usually?
I
use
don't typically use clamps unless I'm working entirely by myself.
Okay.
If I'm working with somebody, when I'm screwing two cabinets together, I'll pull the doors out or drawers out or whatever. I'll have them hold it while they can hold the top and make sure everything's aligned while I have the bottom aligned, and then I'll just pre-drill my hole
Okay.
and screw it together. If I'm working by myself, yeah, I'll use the clamps for it just to keep them held together while I'm supporting things and lining it up.
Gotcha.
Because I don't have three hands.
Right. All right. And that's a pretty good rundown. Let me zoom through kind of what we have here. Oh, stud finder. We didn't hit that stud finder.
Oh, yeah.
Do you? I mean, you use that.
Sometimes.
Yeah, if you don't already know. I mean, typically
Yeah.
you're going into a situation
Well,
where...
and a lot of times too, if you're doing the uppers first, once I put my line across the wall, what I will do is I will take a screw in my screw gun here. I know full well once I put my line on there, I will actually drill. I will put a screw on. You know, okay, there's a stud. I will put a screw above that line because I know it's going to be hidden by the cabinet.
Gotcha.
So even with a stud finder, I will verify where my studs are.
Yeah.
Put a little mark.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay. And we appreciate you showing us the tools you use for cabinetry